One of Apex Legends' most unique legends, which does require an atypical playstyle and rewards an intelligent, thoughtful, and aggressive player, is Mirage. If you are looking to style on, confuse, and completely embarrass your opponents, you are in the right spot. Wasting no time, let's get right to it. There are so many ways to use Mirage to your advantage, but quickly going over his abilities, his passive is Now You See Me, which briefly gives himself and the teammate he is reviving invisibility. He also gets invisibility upon getting knocked and while respawning players at the beacons. His tactical is Psych Out, which is a decoy Mirage can send out every 15 seconds to mimic his movements and fool enemies. And his ultimate is Life of the Party, which does send out 5 decoys or clones of Mirage to once again greatly confuse enemies, clutter the battlefield, and make plays. Mirage is also now a member of the support class, meaning he can open that secret drawer on the blue loot pills, and he unlocks the option for the entire squad to be able to craft teammates' banners. There's a lot to unpack with Mirage's passive revive, but the big thing is the invisibility that you do get. Specifically though, once you revive your teammate, you get 3 seconds of invisibility for both yourself and that teammate once they do get up. This means 2 things. First, that revive player can escape more easily and reposition to heal up and better survive. And second, if Mirage does have that gold knockdown, which revives players with the bonus 50 health and shields, Mirage and his teammate can actually make massive plays while they are invisible. Even without the gold knockdown though, you as Mirage can make some crazy plays if you are healthy. You can't fire your weapon, but 3 seconds of invisibility is honestly a long time, and you can use this to your advantage by gaining positioning or an alternate angle to beam your enemies and just make a counterplay that a lot of players are not going to expect. Mirage is also the definitive best character to hit that respawn beacon. The invisibility that you are going to get is actually pretty huge. One word of warning when performing revives: there are lights that will shine on Mirage's arms. Be aware of this if enemies are close by and trying to locate you. In general, the lights only appear active or visible to enemies within about 5 meters though. Mirage's tactical decoy is where he really begins to unlock his offensive capabilities. At a basic level, Mirage can send out that decoy to try and bamboozle or confuse enemies to shoot it. This can be done either remotely, letting the clone just stand there or run in a straight line, or Mirage can control that decoy, having it mimic his movements. There are a crazy amount of little tricks and things to know about those decoys, and I do consider these the do's and don'ts of Mirage's decoys. As we go forward, knowing all of these little things is critical to understanding how to best use Mirage's tactical and ultimate. I can't stress this enough. Make sure you pay attention. Firstly, decoys have 45 health, meaning it takes at least a few rounds to destroy them, from most guns that is. Second to this is that decoys have no physical mass, meaning bullets will go through them and they can't be used as cover, just visual confusion or some concealment. Thirdly, and while I have not specifically tracked down numbers, in my experience, it often feels like the footstep audio on decoys is louder, which can have a number of benefits to conceal your movements. Mirage's decoys can also mimic his basic movement, which does include jumping, crouching, sliding, punching, and even the animation of aiming his gun down sights. Additionally, Mirage decoys can hold grenades as well. It's critical to make yourself as the Mirage seem like you are a decoy to better utilize Mirage's abilities. To do this, it is crazy important to understand that the following actions are things that Mirage's decoys are not gonna do: using healing items, firing bullets, reloading guns, swapping weapons, and climbing up objects. It's also worth saying that Mirage's decoys can pop up or jump on top of objects if the Mirage is coordinating his movements, but they will actually never climb up a wall. Lastly, the decoys do not pop up dirt or marks on the ground when you are running or sliding, and any highly skilled player might be able to use this information to reveal the real Mirage. If you want to extend your abilities even further, Mirage does have a handful of different animations that the decoys can mimic. Using these will let you confuse enemies as they aren't used to seeing some of them. Firstly, everyone knows the basic of just sending out a decoy in a very typical jogging-like motion. Second is that you can also crouch and send out a decoy if you want to appear as if Mirage is ratting through a building. Next is if you don't have a weapon equipped or drawn, a decoy will appear to fast walk. If you do have a gun drawn, the decoy will move with the sprinting animation and the gun will be out. If you are holding a grenade, this seemingly forces the decoy to appear to run faster and with more intensity. And then finally, Mirage's decoys will slow walk when you are using a healing item. You won't find all of these to be useful every game, but sometimes if a fight is drawn out, being able to send a decoy out in a different type of run animation can greatly add to confusion and frustration for your enemies. The bread and butter of Mirage's tactical is to send it out purely to find enemy locations. When someone does shoot a decoy, an indicator will appear on that enemy and track them for about 3 to 4 seconds. If you know an enemy is nearby, this can be great to do, but even if you have no idea where players are, sometimes just sending a decoy out across an entire large open area is an option to give yourself more intel if an enemy does choose to fire on that decoy. Arguably, the best way to use the tactical for combat is going to be to send out a decoy right around a corner right before you as the Mirage engage an enemy. This forces an enemy to turn away from the corner and waste some rounds on the decoy. Most players just instinctively shoot the decoy or the first thing that they see, and this gives you a massive advantage as the enemy is not only not shooting you, it increases the chances that they are going to have to reload in order to finish you. Also, fighting with a decoy right in front of a Mirage can slightly trick enemies to who is firing and give you just enough confusion and protection where not every single shot might connect to you. Another option is if you are poke fighting, you can lead with a control decoy in front of a railing or ledge to bait enemies into firing on it. This is pretty great as it gets enemies to waste some rounds and then you can engage them from another spot. In a closer range fight, you can walk a decoy right up a staircase or up a hill while you are right behind it. This again forces shots on that decoy prior to you head glitching on that stairway. Even beyond just visually using the decoys as a way to trick enemies, you can use the footstep audio to fool an enemy and force movement or direct them to another area. Much like I did in this fight in Fragment, I moved off the door, sent my decoy out in one direction to give the indication that I am running away or flanking them, but in reality, I ended up attacking from my original spot right as that enemy turned away, and I pretty much just obliterated them. Another tactic is to drop a decoy on a death box. This can bait enemies into thinking you are looting or increase your chances of not getting hit if you are actually looting at the same time. If you want to slingshot a decoy forward or send out a decoy after you do control it, you can control a decoy, jump and slide, and then release control to send the decoy forward. If you are running with an Octane or an Octane drop the pad nearby, decoys can also hit the pad. This can add some audio to your engagement and greatly force enemies to turn their attention to that decoy that is flying through the air while you assault or get another angle on the ground. Also, you can send the decoy out in one direction on the pad and then you go in another, allowing for a little bit more survivability or forcing the enemy to make a decision. If you want to be somewhat sneaky, sometimes just putting a decoy crouched in the doorway is another option. Make enemies think that you are camping on that door when in reality you are getting an alternate angle or again just trying to escape. It goes without saying that the decoy is not going to prevent the door from being opened, so don't expect this. If you are trying to escape a battle and you are around buildings, running away from an enemy and quickly putting a decoy in the center of a room or in a corner can be enough to force enemies to momentarily lose focus while you are in another corner, either getting healed up or getting ready to shoot them in the side. And if you just want one more way to use this tactical ability, it can be to not even use it. Sometimes just running yourself into a wall or slowly across the field in a sporadic way will make enemies think that you are the decoy, and I do like to call this self-decoying, and I will say it's pretty risky, so I generally would avoid it. As we move on to Mirage's ultimate, be sure to take a quick look at my pinned comment down below. Down here, I will list any and all changes to Mirage since the launch of this video. I'll also let you know if there are any parts of this guide that are outdated and how Mirage is faring in today's meta. Also, while you're down there, do me a huge favor, hit that like button. I appreciate the support. A quick word of warning, and something every Mirage player is going to want to know, is that while Mirage is hilariously fun to play, his skill level or meta-ness is going to always somewhat be capped. This is because better players simply just know how to spot the real Mirage and how to counter him. This has consistently left Mirage in a weird state, and it truly makes it a battle of the skill of that Mirage versus the skill or plain awareness of the opposing player. This is of course the case for really any battle in Apex, but it matters a lot more so with Mirage. Mirage's ultimate is really where things start to get explosive. At a basic level, the ability has an active timer of 15 seconds, and it does spawn 5 decoys, meaning 6 Mirages including himself. Upon activation, you also get 1 second of invisibility or a flash of being invis to allow you to be a little bit more tricky with its use. His ultimate is arguably one of the better ones in Apex as well because the timer is only 60 seconds, which is the fastest in the game. The first tip I can give is to simply be using this ability all the time. There really is no need to save the ability like you would say something like a Gibraltar's ultimate. The two most typical ways of activating the ability is to either use it while you are in cover or out of sight, or using it when an enemy already has a line of sight on you. If you are using it out in the open, actively being looked at, this is where the 1 second of invisibility really comes into play, as it gives you a brief moment to redirect your movement and increase your chances of survival or not getting discovered. So if you are running away and using the ultimate right as it activates, it is a solid idea to change your line or direction of movement so an enemy doesn't predict or continue to shoot you in a very very linear way, you will more times than not use the ultimate in this way as an emergency to rip it, as you might be getting beamed, overextended, or you're just in a bad situation. The better way to utilize Mirage's ultimate is when you are not in the line of sight or LOS of enemies. Using this ability when enemies can't see you means they have absolutely no way to tell who the real Mirage is until you, as that real Mirage, make a move that reveals your hand. The big thing with this is to not force or rush plays. You don't want to pop the ultimate and then be mega obvious about where you are moving. You want a decoy or a clone to be the first thing the enemy player sees, as almost all players shoot the first thing that they do see, and if it is you, the real Mirage, then that's a big problem. After they do shoot one decoy, you now know where they are via the tracking, and you can make a much more methodical or smart play by shooting an enemy in the side or escaping in more of an intelligent run path, since you do know where they are. This way of using it from behind cover also means you need to have great awareness as to where enemies are and have a plan of attack. Using it in this fashion often makes you a more aggressive player who is a little bit more proactive than the reactionary player or method of using it in the open. I cannot stress enough how crazy using the ultimate in this manner is when you are pushing a building or before you go around a corner. It clutters enemy sight lines, and it will instill a lot of panic in less skilled players. If you want to extend the use of an ultimate, you can utilize a technique called the reshuffle. This is when Mirage may be getting shot at, or you have been discovered as to who the real Mirage is during the ultimate. You can more or less get another go with the ult by running into the center of where those decoys were deployed, and then pivot and change directions right when you are stacked in the middle of all those clones. The big thing to make this work is to not be doing it while you are actively getting shot, as taking damage makes it much easier for the enemies to track where you are moving to. If you want a very good way to make it hard for enemies to tell where you are, you can utilize a circle play. This is done by using the ultimate and then running in a circle with a decoy in front and behind you. As long as you don't turn and look at the enemies till you are ready to fire or make a play, it's nearly impossible for enemies to tell who the real Mirage is, and more times than not, they're just going to start spraying that circle of Mirage clones. Not always going to be useful, but if you do want to add some extra confusion, you can pop his ultimate and then go into a revive of a teammate. Just note that this does give enemies some indication that you are reviving nearby, but sometimes the extra decoys can add a lot more of confusion. Not always useful, but if you want to add a ton more clones than the 5 that spawn, you can pop Mirage's ultimate and then do an emote. Depending on the emote, this will spawn 2 to 3 times as many clones and make it very difficult for enemies to see things. This can work nicely if a teammate is reviving, or if you want to just style on an enemy and make them feel pretty bad about themselves. Because Mirage always has that slight cap in his skill due to the fact that it somewhat comes down to the rank or the opponent that you're going up against, Mirage is just a fine legend in the meta. Definitely a middle of the pack to lower tier legend, but as with all legends, it's really up to the player, as any legend can be incredible, and Mirage is absolutely no exception to this. Check out this video if you want even more tips to improve your skills right now. Hit that like button, and I will see you in the next one.